Welcome back. If you're just joining us now, we have in studio the president of the Lloydminster Association for Community Living, Stacey Andrews. Thank you so much for coming in today, Stacey.
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Why don't you just start off by talking about what the Lloydminster Association for Community Living does?
Well, we do many things. We are a small nonprofit association that serves children and adults with developmental disabilities in our community to have good lives. So what that means is to have a life that you or I would aspire to. So for children that are of school age, for them to go to school and go to their neighborhood school with their brother or sister and to learn in a regular classroom. And as children become youth, for them to be, aspiring to get a job for real pay. And as people graduate from high school, that they go to post-secondary studies to figure out what they want to be or to help develop their career path. And then obviously to get a job, a meaningful job as they get older.
Let's talk about sort of the inception of going through a life with a developmental disability. How is the education system for people with developmental disabilities here in Lloydminster?
We have two school divisions, and the Lloydminster Catholic School Division and the Lloydminster Public School Division, and they're very inclusive. They work hard to ensure that kids with disabilities learn in regular classrooms and learn beside children without disabilities. I can speak honestly about this because my son is in grade 3 and he is fully included in his school and in his school community.
Does he really drive your passion behind doing this project?
Yes, absolutely. It's pretty close to my heart.
Yeah.
So.
Talk a little bit about having a child with a developmental disability. That must really rock your life.
Rock my life, yeah. I mean, it's really important, I think, with our family, and I think with any other family too, is that we are seen as a family in our community. Yeah. We're a family of 4, and I have 2 children, Brooke and Tylen, and Brooke's 10 and Tylen's 8. And that we really just want what any other family wants in our community. And so for us, that our kids both go to school and both go to the neighborhood school, have accessible, opportunity in school and can go to recreation activities, and for Brooke to be included and Tylen to be included in recreation. And just any opportunity that any other family in our community would have or want for their child.
So what sort of things does the Lloydminster Association for Community Living provide to families to help ease that transition with having a child like that?
Well, it depends really on the age of the child, but LACL can connect families to services and supports in our community. We can, and actually we're hoping, or we are moving forward with providing some family engagement opportunities. Okay. We want families to get connected to other families, because that's the power and having that connection happen, for families to be inspired by other families and what other families have done for their children. So we want to serve as, I don't want to say maybe the backbone, but to help enable families to get connected to one another.
Let's talk about employment for people with developmental disabilities. Now, recently we did a piece on the Segberg family, and I know that you know them. Yes. And Dean Segberg, he has a 6-year-old son maybe, who has autism, and he says to me that the only thing he just wants to pay taxes. And that's their goal as a family. Is that what you're finding with people with developmental disabilities? Is that sort of the main goal there?
Well, I think it's, as a family, I can speak to that myself, that we want the same thing for Tylen as we do for Brooke, for him to have a meaningful life. And so I'm not sure how you feel, but I mean, I know a job gives me meaning in my life. Yeah. So as my son gets old enough to get a job, I think that will give him meaning. So it would be no different for a family that that has a child without a disability. That you really want to just create that good life, and what that good life means is that you have meaning in your life, you have connection, and you have relationship with people, and that a job can help that.
How do you go about placing people with developmental developmental disabilities in workplaces?
Well, actually, so we're the Lloydminster Association for Community Living. So we're a small association in Lloydminster, and we're connected to provincial associations. So we're connected to the Alberta Association for Community Living and also the Saskatchewan Association for Community Living. And so the Alberta Association for Community Living has a project called the Rotary Employment Project. And what that does is it engages Rotary members to be able to provide opportunities for employment for people with developmental disabilities. So we have done work, the ACL has done work with Rotary members and getting people with developmental disabilities placed in jobs so they get real jobs for real pay.
How are you finding people are working with people with developmental disabilities? Is there a learning curve there for employers? Is it hard for some people, or is the transition usually pretty smooth?
I think it really is dependent on the interests of that person with the developmental disability and finding the right job. It'd be no different than me going to a job that I didn't like. Right. It wouldn't last very long. Right. So I think it's really key that that the person with the developmental disability be able to articulate what their interests are, and the key is to get the right placement of the job so that they have the right employer. Yes, there is a curve with the employer to build capacity of the employer, but I think it's easily done with the right support.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Stacey. This has been a pleasure.
Thanks.
This has been our conversation with Stacey Andrews, the president of the Lloydminster Association for Community Living.